Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Jermaine Morgan TV. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about 10 amazing gospel bass lines, so stay tuned. Alright guys, welcome back. If this is your first time to my channel, I'm Jermaine Morgan and I appreciate you watching this channel. I've been seeing this wave going around the internet. 10 greatest drum solos of all times, 10 greatest guitar riffs, 10 greatest this, 10 greatest that. And I think all of those are really cool, but what I haven't seen is anything that represents the gospel community and specifically the bass players. So what I wanted to do is put together a list of like 10 very influential, staple, contemporary gospel bass lines. Man, that's a lot of words. 10 influential, staple, contemporary gospel bass lines. Well, that's the best way I can say it because gospel is so vast. There's so many subgenres of gospel. But today I just wanted to deal with more on the contemporary side of things. So we'll kick this list off with number 1, High Praise by Bishop Paul S. Morton. Alright, so this song features Andrew Goucher on bass. I mean, he kills this entire album. Him and the epic duo with him and Jonathan Dubose Jr., who will appear several times in this list. But Andrew Goucher completely lays it down on this album. If you listen all the way to the very end, there's this crazy lick he plays at the end. But this entire song, he murders this song with the bass line, the way it moves around through the beginning of the song. So do yourself a favor when you have time and go listen to this song by Bishop Paul S. Morton called High Praise. All right, keeping on with the list, number 2 on the list is Fred Hammond, Let the Praise Begin. Now, obviously, this is the live version, but if you have the opportunity, please go check out the album. Nowadays, you don't catch Fred playing bass as much live as you did back in the day, but Fred is a staple bass player that you just deserves a video all in itself. So you will see Fred on this video several times just because in gospel, he was so important to the gospel sound. And the Let the Praise Begin is a really staple song in the gospel church and the gospel community. So you've probably played that song at some point in church. If not, you probably will play it because Fred has so many staple gospel songs and there's so much nice bass stuff on the original album if you go back and listen to this record. So do yourself a favor and hear all these things that he's doing. On this particular video, I think he's playing Ken Smith bass, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what he played on the actual recording. If somebody does know, be sure to drop it in the comments. That'll be a nice little trivia question for me to learn. So number 3, Joy by the Mississippi Mass featuring James Moore. Now, this song was super staple back in the day when I was growing up in the 90s because you had the duo Joel Smith and once again Jonathan Dubose Jr. Joel Smith is the late great who is no longer with us, but at this time back in the early 90s, 80s, 90s, even into the early 2000s, he was very staple in the gospel bass and really developing some really moving bass lines back in the day that people to this day still can't duplicate the way he done it. So just check it out what he was doing here on this really short clip of Joy. And let me just say, Joel Smith was one of the cleanest gospel bass. It's like everything he did was so precise and it seemed well thought out, but executed so well. So rest in peace to the late, great Joel Smith. But be sure to do yourself a favor and check out that album, the Mississippi Mass Choir, Joy featuring James Moore. All right, showing up at number 4, I'll Trust by Bishop Larry Trotter. Now, this was a favorite of mine when I was in college. We learned this song with the college gospel choir. I think this is Maurice Fitzgerald playing bass. I don't know what kind of bass this is. It kind of looks like a Tobias, but it has the sound almost of a Ken Smith. I'm not sure. Another answer that somebody that knows, please drop it in the comment section. I'm curious to find out, but just check out what he was doing on this song. I mean, he was laying down some amazing stuff. And once again, the biggest thing that stands out to me listening to this was the amazing tone he was getting from that bass. I don't know what effect he was using, but the tone was amazing on this particular song. And that lick, everybody tried to play that drum lick way back in the day. So if you have an opportunity, be sure to check out that song by Bishop Larry Trotter, I'll Trust. And the entire album is amazing too. If you want to just go ahead and get the whole thing on iTunes or Spotify, add that to your playlist today as well. All right, so showing up at number 5, another staple song in gospel music is The Best Is Yet to Come by Donald Lawrence. And this features Melvin Gray on bass. Melvin has been doing Donald Lawrence's stuff pretty much for all the time I can remember, with the stuff with him and the Tri-City Singers. So if you're familiar with any of that music, that's Melvin Gray on the bass. But that stuff is staple as well in church. Now the bass line is, and a lot of these bass lines that you guys will hear today, is not that they're so fancy or anything like this. It's just really staple bass lines, and when you put them in the context of the whole band, they really lock everything together. So I really want you to just kind of pay attention to how everything is locked around that bass line of the songs that you're hearing.
Everybody, come on, let's rock. Everybody, come on, put your hands out there. Make some noise, hype it up.
Hold on, my brother, don't give up.
Hold on, my sister.
Hold on, my sister, just look up.
There's a master plan.
There is a master.
So ultimately, you can hear that it's just a really, really groovy bass line, and it's just like, it's pretty much straight to the point, but it's how everything is so locked together. Donald Lawrence is known in his music for creating really, really staple songs and having really groovy stuff. It feels to me like a lot of the 70s music, how the groove was just there, that foundation never moved. It's like everything moved with the song, but that foundation never left. And Melvin Gray is a great example of doing that in gospel music, laying down really, really just solid bass lines. And it's something you think is simple when you hear it, but once you sit down and you start playing the stuff, you're just like, oh, there's a lot that's really going on here, but it's moving with the band and it's so locked. He has this really finesse way of making it sound simple, even though there's a lot happening in the bass line. So be sure to check that song out as well. So once again, showing up at number 6 is Fred Hammond with Celebrate He Lives. This is another example of just good execution of a great bass line by Fred Hammond. So check this song out.
It's time to celebrate the Savior and His word. Let's shout because we know He lives and we are served. His love has set us free, our enemies defeat. If with me you agree, come on and lift up your hands. Everybody lift your.
And Fred is really great about coming up with really soulful, moving bass lines. They're very rhythmic, but at the same time, they still just lay that groove down. It's like, it's like they're really, really moving bass lines, but they always kind of some way land back on the groove. Boom, boom, boom. There's a simplicity about them, but there's something that's moving as well that keeps you interested in the bass line the whole time. So this is a great song to check out as well by Fred Hammond. Showing up at number 7 is How Much We Can Bear by Hezekiah Walker. This song is so iconic in the gospel community because it starts out with the bass solo, and that's something that's not heard that often in gospel. Well, back in the day where songs would actually start out with the bass solo, and the song features Reggie Parker playing that iconic bass solo. So check it out. Some of you may recognize this sound.
Clap your hands, everybody. Here we go. Come on.
Man, this is a really simple song as far as the groove. People listen for those moments in this song. And I really pay respect to Reggie Parker for giving us so many iconic, because that's not the only one that he did with Hezekiah Walker. There were so many songs that he played on, but he gave us some really iconic stuff. And again, a lot of times it's about the simplicity and what works for the song. So do yourself a favor and check out that song, How Much We Can Bear. So showing up at number 8, another song by Hezekiah Walker. Now, I'm not sure who the bass player is for this song. I want to say it's Reggie Parker, but I could be wrong. It didn't show it in the album credits. Some of you guys may know, so again, I welcome you to let me know in the comments who this was playing this song. But it's another iconic gospel song, a really staple gospel song that a lot of us play in our churches.
You bless me, I'll be satisfied. You can wipe the tears from my eyes. Anyway, you bless me, I will proclaim. I said that the power shining wood. Anyway, I'll be satisfied. Yeah. This is what the Lord did for me. He blessed my going out.
One of the things about these songs, if you were to take these little subtle things that they were doing in the song, these iconic moments, what I call them, that they were doing in the song, it would add so much more to your bass line simply just by adding these little simple things in the songs, because these are the things that people remember. You don't know it at the time when you're playing it, but these players they seem like they were masters to me at coming up with these moments in the song and just knowing what to put where. It's one thing to have a whole bunch of licks, but it's another thing to know exactly when and what to put where in these songs. All right, so showing up at number 9 is a song that's one of my favorites by John P. Key, Rain on Us. And this song features Tony Russell. Now, if you don't know who John P. Key is for some random reason, do yourself a favor and look up almost any of his music in the 90s and 2000s and all that stuff. John P. Key is definitely a staple artist in gospel music, as well as Fred Hammond, Hezekiah Walker. These guys really fostered that new sound for gospel, but John P. Key has always been known for having a smashing band. At the time, this featured Tony Russell on bass, playing this song Rain on Us.
Yo, Tony, play bass, man. Play it again. I need the house to rock with me. Let's go that way, brother. I'm the quad director. You better watch the quad director.
So as you can hear, he was rocking the bass, and if you grab the album Not Guilty, he completely wrecked this entire record. So much nice stuff that he played. I had a hard time trying to figure out which song to pick from this album because there's so many great songs on this album, and Tony Russell is a phenomenal bass player. All right, so coming up at number 10, last but not least, one more Fred Hammond songs. Obviously, you can tell I have a lot of respect for the genius of Fred Hammond, but this song doesn't feature Fred Hammond on the bass. It features my good friend Alan Snoop Evans, called Awesome God, and what he does with this song, I'll just say, is not fair.
It is. Y'all might as well get with it.
I kind of want to let that one play, but we have to go on. So if you haven't heard this song, do yourself a favor and listen to the entire song. There's so many great elements that Snoop was pulling from in this song. He pulled a lot, to me, from funk and jazz fusion and incorporated it some kind of way into this groove, and just, dude, he took us for a ride on the entire song. So do yourself a favor and go check out all of these. Now, this is just 10 songs. This does not cover the vast majority of how many great gospel songs there are out there. Contemporary gospel, traditional gospel, gospel chords. I mean, it's so many great bass lines. I just got 10. I had to narrow it down to 10. Dude, this video would be 2 hours long. So I just wanted to start this off with giving you guys 10 songs that I thought were really influential in gospel music, as well as having a really great foundation and a really great bass line, really great ideas that we can pull from and add to our own playing as we're trying to improve and become better players. Now, if there's some bass lines I didn't add in this video and some ones that you thought that were really staple in gospel as well as far as contemporary music, be sure to drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are concerning this subject. This is something interesting for me. I definitely feel like I need to come back and do another video. Y'all let me know in the comments whether you want to hear another video like this where I share a few more songs with you, and so you can kind of get a better idea and get a better grasp of some of the things that I pull from growing up playing gospel music. And this, again, this doesn't even cover half of some of the great bass lines I've heard. I want to give you some really staple ones in gospel, and so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And remember, if you want more content like this, press the subscribe button, turn on my notifications so that you don't miss any videos that I post. And last but not least, if you're looking to improve on your bass playing, especially in gospel, I invite you to JermaineMorgan.net, where I've created custom courses that will help you navigate through gospel music, as well as my monthly membership that constantly give you guys ideas on how to improve, not only just in gospel bass playing, but completely across the board as a bass player in general. But however, I do have a lot of information as it relates to playing gospel, because that's where I spent the most of my time. So I invite you guys to become a part of that, again, at JermaineMorgan.net. If not, I will see you guys on next week. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video. Take care. Peace.